Hi, good afternoon, and thanks for coming today. Welcome to our first of the visual visit series, which is going to be focused on admission for this fall, or next coming fall, rather. My name is Taryn Wolf. I'm the assistant dean here at the Yale School of Art, and I manage the admission process as well as work with students once they're here enrolled in the programs. So before we start today, I just want to give a quick shout out to our first year student, Heejae Kim, who designed the beautiful visual identity for this series of events. I really love it, and I hope you do too. Additionally, we have Lindsay Mancini, our assistant director of communications, who's running the scenes behind, uh, running the show behind the scenes. And a little bit later in the program, we'll open a Q&A interface for you to enter any questions you may have that we'll do our best to answer at the end. We also have Sarah Cronquist, our senior admin assistant in the admission office, who answers all of our admission emails and phone calls who you may have been in touch with already. And Nicole Archer, who is the director of financial aid, and you'll hear from Nicole in a little bit. So let's start off. Yale School of Art is one of the 13 graduate and professional schools that make up Yale University, in addition to Yale College, which is the undergraduate institution in the original school that formed Yale in 1701. So the university has been around for a very long time. There's an incredibly long, layered, rich history, which I welcome you to go on the yale.edu website and read and learn more about. But this is an aerial view of our campus from probably a drone or from the air. We've got Harkness Tower right there in the middle and the Long Island Sound in the very background. We are in New Haven, Connecticut, right on the shoreline of the East Coast. We're about a 2-hour train ride from New York City, a little bit less, and a little more than a 2-hour train ride to Boston, Massachusetts. And the campus is very large urban campus. It occupies a lot of the downtown of the city. There's, I believe, about 400 acres of land that makes up, the campus here in New Haven. We also have a satellite campus in Orange, Connecticut called West Campus, which is where the nursing school is based. But there's also many other units and departments that are non-academic that are based there as well. But just to give you the look and feel of the campus, I think because we are not able to have, hundreds of prospective students who are interested visit campus, we really want to be able to show you what we're doing here and what it looks like. This series of information sessions was formerly called our open house. We've shifted it a little bit to really focus on an online information experience. So we're glad you're here, and there'll be 2 supplemental sessions that you can join as well in December. This shot here on the bottom left is the Beinecke, which we'll talk a bit about, one of my favorite resources within the greater university system. So the School of Art is pretty small in comparison to Greater Yale, and that's why I just try to give you an overview of what we're operating within. So Yale University enrolls more than 15,000 students and scholars every year, so it's rather large. We have a little bit less than 7,000 undergraduate students studying in Yale College, and Yale College students are members of one of 14 residential colleges, which are the idea is to have a smaller feel school inside a bigger undergraduate university. There are over 8,000 graduate and professional school students studying at Yale across 13 graduate and professional schools. So art is one of the professional schools, and then there's the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, otherwise known as GSAS. So don't get those 2 confused when you apply. Make sure you apply to the art school application, not the GSAS application. So it's actually interesting as I was preparing for this talk, I was doing a little research on kind of the history of when Yale School of Art came into the fold and actually learned that this, in addition to Yale College, the professional schools that came after came in this order: medicine, followed by divinity, law, then art. So we were actually the fourth professional school to be added, and that was in 1869. And fun fact, we were the first school at Yale to enroll women, which we're very proud of. From then on, Yale College wouldn't admit its first class of women until 100 years later. Following art, the Professional School of Music came, then forestry, which is now environment, then public health, nursing, drama, architecture, management, and finally, just a couple of years ago, the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs became the last school, and they are the only professional school that is smaller than art. At art, we enroll 125 students a year, and we'll do the breakdown when we get to the programs. Although the School of Art occupies its own 3 buildings, soon to be 4, we are part of the greater university, and there's many instances where our students are either taking classes or engaging in activities or talks or other types of events all across the university. This is the Humanities Quadrangle. Just wanted to give you a feel of campus. It's very beautiful, lots of old storied buildings and trees. This is near Old Campus, right by the Sterling Memorial Library. This is Hill House Avenue, where the undergraduate admission office is, and the president's house and the provost's house. There are so many different units and centers and museums and collections that make up, the research possibilities at Yale. And something that's so exciting about studying in your MFA here is your access to all of that, including all the people and the scholars and potential peers that are studying in other areas across the university. But I just decided to highlight some of the facilities that most of our students end up engaging with a lot, that are really exciting. So, of course, there is an incredible collection, museums and collections on campus. And then there's also these opportunities through cross-disciplinary labs, such as the Center for Collaborative Arts and Media, or CCAM, which is like a multidisciplinary kind of media-based exploratory lab that is available for undergrads and grad students to become involved with, and some of our faculty have close ties there. The Center for Engineering and Innovation Design is another area within the engineering part of the university that has really opened its doors to our students, and collaborations and workshops, and even a fellowship that we created there. There's this Whitney Center for Film Arts and the Yale Farm, just to name a couple of others. And then as far as the museums and collections, this is the Beinecke Rare Books and Manuscripts Archive. And this is a library that's really where Yale houses its exceptional collection of incredibly old, antique, and very rare books. The Beinecke was opened in 1963. It is an incredible structure that's made up of 1.5-inch thick marble. It's a cube, so the light comes through the marble during the day. And in the center is a 6-story temperature-controlled library, where all of these incredible volumes are kept. And you cannot check things out from this library, but you can go into the research room and view things and study them and do your research with them. A smaller, newer library is the Haas Family Arts Library, and this is located in Rudolph Hall, which is this towering brutalist building just catty corner across the street from Green Hall, which is our home. And this is the architecture school building, but the Haas Family Arts Library is situated within there. And this has all manner of art and design and architecture, history, and picture book volumes. We also have a collection of thesis works from graphic design students and photography students that are held in an archive that can be checked out or viewed and researched here through the Haas as well. Fun fact about the Haas is that the School of Art has its own dedicated librarian. Her name is Tess. And Tess actually provides like a concierge service, a librarian service, where she'll meet with students, come to your studio, look at what you're working on, hear about your interests, and then actually curate books for you to come and borrow and read and study in. It's pretty amazing. The Yale Center for British Art is one of the two museums that's just in very close proximity to our buildings. It was opened in 1977 and is currently undergoing a renovation and will reopen, I believe, in March of 2025. And the Yale University Art Gallery, which was founded in 1832, is an incredibly vast collection of artworks, genres, and times. We have, I think, something like 20 curators that work in the UAG. And there's many opportunities for engagement through talks and programming. Our education department employs students as docents or other positions. And some of our students even do design work here at the UAG. So this is a long-standing relationship between the school and this particular museum. We also have other museums like the Peabody, which is a paleontology museum of natural history that was founded in 1860. So really I could go on and on about the history, but we'd be here all day. The Yale Farm is one of my favorite outposts or parts of campus where students can participate in, harvest of food, doing natural dyes, workshops. They run a program every Friday called Need to Know, KNEAD, where they make pizzas in this outdoor oven and learn about land use and agriculture. Definitely worth checking out if you're a student. And this is the print room in the YCBA. So there's just like unbelievable access to archives and collections through, studying at Yale for your MFA. So then there's the School of Art, which is our tiny but mighty MFA program. So in addition to the MFA education, our school and our faculty provide all the undergraduate teaching for Yale College in art and design, which is unusual because most of the professional schools at Yale are separate entities from those subjects in Yale College. Art and architecture are the only two exceptions to that. Here's the front of our main building. We're on Chapel Street. This building is called Green Hall. This is where our administrative offices are. We also have our gallery in this building. These are all four of our programs. Yeah, so Green Hall's in here. My office is in here. We also have dark rooms, the graphic design program, atrium, some photo studios, lots of undergrad classrooms, and a 3-level gallery, which is all for student exhibition. This is the kind of frontmost room in there. Directly adjacent to Green Hall is our Crown Street building, where we have painting and printmaking studios and the print shop as well. We've also started building a small niche, but still fabric lab or like textile equipment little section. There's also a small finishing shop in here just for making stretchers. Our larger fabrication shops in wood and metal are located about a block and a half away from Green Hall in 36 Edgewood, which is the building you see in the back here with the lights on behind the tree. In the foreground, this is 32 Edgewood, which is a multi-use space, the one with the green roof. We've used this as a classroom, a gallery, a lecture hall, a party space. It's just sort of a big white empty space that we can repurpose for different things. Sometimes there's crits in there. And then in 36 Edgewood behind, in addition to our fabrication shops, we have some limited digital fab, like a laser cutter. We also have studios for sculpture and some photography studios. Those are split between the two buildings. We also have a fourth building about to open, which is going to be focused on undergrad studios and seminar space, but it'll still be part of the School of Art kind of campus, if you will. This is our shop. And just to give you kind of a lay of the land here. So the School of Art, Green Hall is the main yellow dot. To just upwards from there is Edgewood. So you just see it's a couple blocks, and then directly behind or below is the Crown building. Those are the yellow dots. And then it's showing you kind of proximity to some of those other libraries and collections that I mentioned. So within the school, I mean, one of the things that's really important is we have all of our enrolled students have 24/7 access to campus during the academic year, and labs up until the end of May after graduation or in the summer, and then their studio up until the end of June if they graduate or through the summer. This is a photography student studio, for just example. Students in photo share a studio the first year with one other person and have their own studio in the second year. This is the atrium where graphic design students work. This is kind of an open desk space, communal area with a large flex space that you just saw on the bottom. And then students in painting and sculpture have their own studio, both the first and the second year. Soon, we're going to go back to the programs. I'm going to talk to you a bit about some of the work being done in those programs and get into particulars about admission, as well as a little high level view of curriculum. But before we do that, we're going to just segue into admission, because that's the main thing we're all here for. And we're really looking to demystify this process for our applicants. Applying to Yale shouldn't be a scary thing. We are people, we're here to help you. And though we do have guidelines, a lot of times I think people think about them as so rigid that, missing something will disqualify you. And that's just not the case. So we really welcome your application. We love that you're excited about the potential of studying at Yale. And through any process of picking a school of interest or thinking about where you're going to use your resources in terms of even just paying application fees and putting the time and energy into applying, it's really important to learn about what differentiates each program from the others. And there's no such thing as the best school for everyone. So there might be something that's better or a better fit for you than another, or even than our school. So let's do it. So applying to Yale is very straightforward. We have an online application. We use Slate. Many programs do. Within that form, you'll give us, some of your academic history, your place of birth, all your kind of, those vitals, demographic information. Although, we do not look at certain demographic information. We don't disclose during the process of review. But you'll also have a space to tell us, kind of what you're doing since you graduated, what kind of work you're engaged with, etc. And in addition to the application form, where you'll also indicate your program of interest, you will also submit some supplemental items to make a complete application. Those are the portfolio. This is one of the most important parts of your application. So this has its own slide, which we'll get to. A one-page statement. This is approximately 500 words. We'd really like you to get it all on one page. This is where you're going to address the work, the ideas in the work, what you're really focused on, why Yale, why now, anything about you that you feel is really relevant to your practice can be addressed here. But part of the challenge is the brevity. So tell us in one page. The committee goes through hundreds of applications, of course. And so we really want to be able to get to the heart of the matter, of who you are and what you're doing in your work. We also require 3 letters of reference. These should be from people who know you and can really speak to your work and also your potential to be successful in a program like this. We recommend, like a lot of our literature says, like that this should be faculty or people who work or active in the field. We just recommend that so that they can kind of speak to your potential in that field. But we know that not everyone is in touch with their faculty from undergrad or what have you. So you can use your best judgment of who you ask, but ask people who will write a letter that sounds like they know you and they care about what you do, and give them lead time so that you're not asking them the last minute, because most letters like that read that way if they ever show up at all. We require a student copy of your transcript. So this is very easy. Just upload an unofficial copy as an applicant. If you are invited to be a finalist, we'll ask you for an official copy then, and you can get it to us at that point. We also take those digitally. We require a $100 application fee. I know these things add up. It is a lot of work to process and review your application. We also have a need blind admission process. So there really is no point in which we pull in anyone's ability to pay or not pay. We don't want that to be part of our decision process, so we don't have a fee waiver process. However, if you are coming from a nation that has a low exchange rate with the US, we have a list of these countries on our website, we will waive your fee. But generally, we don't have a fee waiver program. I apologize, unfortunately. The resume and CV can be really straightforward. We're not necessarily looking for, we're not looking for people to have like a long CV with a ton of showing history or a lot of exhibition history. That's really not necessary. We're really just interested in like, what have you been doing since you left school? What type of work have you gotten engaged with? And in the graphic design area, they kind of look at how you're designing your CV or resume, but in the other programs, that's of less consequence. Lastly, we don't require a GRE or other standardized test, but if you are a non-native English speaker who did an academic program for undergrad in a non-English speaking curriculum, you will be asked to submit a TOEFL or Duolingo or IELTS score. You'll have a spot on the application to self-report that score, but please know that until you request the score to be sent to us from the testing entity, this requirement will continue to show up as not received in your portal. And also just a good reminder that as an applicant, you have the ability to see the progress of all of your required supplements or submission items. Additionally, you'll be able to remind your recommenders after you've plugged them in if their letter hasn't come in yet. You can also see that. A note on that is that we leave the letter of recommendation portal open. It never closes. We do start reviewing very shortly after the deadline. It's all digital now. We don't have a lot to prepare physically. So we don't want to see anybody be reviewed without a really key letter. That's important. So please have your recommenders get them to us as close to on time as possible. Okay, the admission deadline for fall of 25 is January 8th. This is a Wednesday at midnight. Please apply early. We'll get to that in a second, but don't wait until the last minute. You can't believe how many people start an application in the last like 2 days, but I'm here to tell you, early bird maybe doesn't get the worm, but it doesn't get shut out of the process when the system is super overburdened at like 11:59. So applicants are notified of preliminary selections in early February. We will let you know if we're unfortunately, regrettably denying your application or if you're invited to an interview. And if you get invited to an interview, you'll have all the information communicated to you on how to schedule that, what else to prepare. And we give you a few weeks between notification and actually having you sit in a Zoom interview with our faculty. If you're interested in applying for more than one program, you can certainly do that, but you have to make individual applications to those. And we recommend tailoring your statement to that specific area of interest or that area you're applying for, the different areas you're applying for. Like for instance, one program probably shouldn't read the statement meant for another program. To just be thoughtful about that. And then finalists invited to interview will be notified in early March of their final selection. For the 2025 admission cycle, we plan to admit 10 students in both photography and sculpture. So each program will admit 10 or have an incoming cohort of 10. We will admit 18 students in painting and printmaking, which is our biggest program, and then 6 prelim and 11 MFA students. Although this year we admitted 7 prelim and 10 MFA students. And that was just because the prelim pool was extremely strong this year. And the department just decided to take 7 prelims. We're going to take 17 incoming students for design, and that'll be one breakdown or the other. We invite about 15 to 20% of our total applicant pool to interview with the admission committee annually. And the admission committee is made up of faculty and occasionally alumni, but not students. And as staff, myself and Sarah, we facilitate the reviews. I sit on the photography committee, but basically the faculty who will be teaching you are the ones making these final selections as well as conducting your interviews. And we will extend admission offers to approximately 58 students in the first round of fall of 2025. The average admit rate, it really varies every year, but I really just try to encourage people not to get super caught up in that because you never know. I mean, if you go through this process of like learning about Yale and looking at the work and understanding what it is you're looking for, and you really believe you're a good fit, you might very well have a great chance. And so we welcome your application and hope that you'll follow through with it. We also have a very unique admission practice here where we only admit the number of students that we have room for. And then as they decline, we go to the wait list. So we make a wait list every year. It could be from 4 to 8 or 9 people per program, depending. And we don't rank our wait list. So I'll get to that in a minute. But taking time to prepare is you want to just apply early. You want to give your recommenders lots of lead time. Committees begin reviewing applications pretty much right after the deadline. I mean, we go into the first round of reviews the day after, or by like the deadline's Friday at midnight or Wednesday at midnight. By Friday morning, I have files in reviewers' queues. So, get everything uploaded in time and, make sure follow up with those recommenders. Again, the system can get really a little slow in the final, hours or minutes of submission. So don't get locked out just because you didn't prepare in time. So back to the wait list. What I always say is whether at Yale, like whether you're in the 10 admitted people or the 5 waitlisted people, it's kind of the same. I mean, you're admissible at that point. We don't have room for as many people as we'd love to be able to admit and work with. So sometimes getting like being on the wait list or being admitted has just everything to do with the cohort as it shapes, right? So we're really looking at a balance of people and the work that they're making and the interests they represent and how that group is going to work together. So much of what we do in admission here is really, really build cohorts. So knowing that when you get here, if you end up enrolling, the group that you're with has been so carefully chosen along with yourself to come in and just kind of be balancing ideas off each other and working together as peers. So we do not rank the wait list because in the event that someone declines and we have a spot, it'll be depending upon who didn't come, who will ultimately choose. Our interviews take place on Zoom and they can be with 2 people. If you're in painting, for instance, you'll be interviewed by 2 faculty. If you're in sculpture, photo, you'll be interviewed by the whole core faculty, which is like 5 to 6 people, including in some cases myself. And in design, it's usually about 3 or 4 faculty. Yeah. So It's a little bit different, but when you sign up for your interview, we'll get in touch with you for any of the details that you may have to prepare. We may ask for an additional supplement of work for some programs. Okay, portfolio. So we probably get about 90% of the questions we get in admission have to do with portfolio, and specifically questions about individual works, which obviously we can't really see. We can't really give you advisement or see your individual work at the point in which you're applying. So it's very hard for us to give you detailed individual personal advice about your portfolio selections. So we basically go into this every year by advising you to trust your own judgment. It's really important. It's part of this whole process of making your final selection, is knowing only you know best how to demonstrate your practice in a series of images. Okay. But there are some guidelines. And again, if you don't follow them exactly, it's not the end of the world. We do try to streamline this and would love for you to follow to the best of your ability, and that fits in with your work. So 16 images are required for a painting. That's the maximum. Up to 20 for the rest of the programs. In general, the key rule is that, or the key thing to remember is that the portfolio should be images which represent the current direction of your practice, that demonstrate your interests and what you're excited about, as well as the materiality within your work and your skills, if applicable, which usually is. So work should be made within the last 12 to 18 months, ideally, or at least half of it should. Sometimes people have a little bit of older work, but the goal here is not to say, oh, look what I did 5-6 years ago and look at how far I've come. That's not really showing that progression. It's really about, what body of work are you super invested in right now that you're looking to carry forth as a starting point for your graduate study. Okay. There's particulars about how to photograph the work, how we want to see it. We, especially in the age of all of this, AI and generative tools, we want to be really specific that we're looking at actual material work when we are. So please, no digital cropping and masking of images. We want to see the edges of your paintings. We want to see that 3D work in space. We want to see the shadows, the context of how it should be viewed. If you have video, which a lot of people do, whether for documentation purposes or just as your art form, we ask that you sequence those last, and that each individual time-based submission be no more than 2 minutes, so 2 minutes max. We also don't recommend, if you have longer video work, we don't recommend a trailer or sizzle reel type of approach. Just pick a selection of the piece that you'd like the committee to look at. Again, work made, or to that end, work made either in collaboration with another artist or designer or a group collaborative, or, and I know this is different, work made with the use of generative AI tools must be identified as such in the comments section of the piece. So for each piece you upload, you can say, here's my title, here's my dimensions, here's my materials, here's when I did it. And there's notes. We don't really expect you to use the notes. You don't have to write a long description for each piece. And actually, I recommend not doing that in general. But when you need to contextualize something like, I made this as a collaborative with so-and-so, or I made this using this tool, please do use that to have the most, integrity within the process of your authorship. Okay, so we are gonna shift over to Nicole Archer now, my colleague, who's going to talk about financial aid and applying for that process. And then when she's done, I'll be back. And at that point, we will go into programs, curriculum, and a little bit of specifics about preparing your application for these areas. So especially for those of you that are thinking about possibly applying to more than one program, hopefully that section will help you in being able to determine if one might be a little bit of a better fit for you. So, all right. Thanks, Nicole. Are you ready?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Archer, Director of Financial Aid for both the Yale School of Art and the Yale School of Architecture. Thank you so much for joining. So to go over some information regarding applying for financial aid, all applicants are required to complete the CSS profile. Please take note, each school has its own CSS profile code. The Yale School of Art is 3807. It's important to include that because if you do not, the CSS profile will default to Yale College and we won't be able to view it. Our domestic students will also need to complete the FAFSA application. The 2025-2026 CSS profile and FAFSA application are based on the 2023 tax returns. So please locate the 2023 tax returns for you and your parents. To go over the cost, for the Yale School of Art, the cost of attendance for the current academic year is 74,397. Out of that, the tuition was 46,870. The estimated living expenses was 21,927. And please note, a separate charge is Yale Health Insurance for our students, and for the year that was $3,100. So requirements and deadlines to apply for financial aid. Again, the CSS profile and FAFSA both are available now. And the 2023 financial information for both student and your parents. And all items should be submitted by March 1st. So financial aid and admissions are separate. The admissions process is need blind. Financial aid reviews follows admission decisions. The financial aid packages are sent within 2 weeks of admission notification for those who file on time. Missing or incomplete applications will delay the financial aid review and packaging process. And scholarship awards are calculated and granted solely by financial aid office, strictly on a school calculated need basis. Okay. So family information. Parental financial information is filed on the CSS profile only. Our domestic students are not required to put their parent information on the FAFSA application. There are not waivers for age, dependency status, or parental willingness to contribute. Applicants who have difficulty completing the parental section of the CSS profile can postpone filing until after admission. It's not going to impact your eligibility, but please reach out to me directly and we'll work through the application process at that point once I know what your special circumstances are. So need is calculated based on the income and assets for both the applicant and their parents, and is met with a combination of scholarships, loans, work study, and or parent contribution as well as a student contribution. The maximum scholarship that is provided to our highest need first year students equals the cost of tuition. Okay. And the average scholarship award varies annually. Students will have to reapply for financial aid every year.
All right, thank you so much, Nicole. That was super helpful. And Nicole will be here during the Q&A to answer questions. And actually, right now, Lindsay's going to go ahead and open up the Q&A interface. So if you have questions about admission or financial aid as we go through the program section, just go ahead and type them in the Q&A. We'll do our best to get to all your questions when at the end, although I know we're running a little behind, so we may have to answer some of them via email. We'll do our best to consolidate the FAQs. Okay, so back at the School of Art, we have our 4 programs that I mentioned earlier. So graphic design, painting and printmaking, photography, and sculpture. We also have a lot of different activations around interdepartmental and interdisciplinary studies where we try to break down the silos between our programs And we do that in a number of different ways, which we'll talk about. But I wanted to just go through some of the academic requirements and pedagogical frameworks that are part of all of the programs that we offer here within the MFA. So 60 units are required in total to earn the graduate degree, and between 42 and 48 core units are taken within your area of study. If you take anything away from this presentation, I hope it is that the Yale School of Art MFA program is very structured. There's a lot of requirements. It doesn't operate like a residency program, where you show up and and you're just making your own work and not you're just showing up for crits. It's not like that. There's a lot of classes. You have to be a lot of different places. It's a lot to manage. So we encourage people to think about this as they consider the program that's going to be the best fit for them, because not everybody likes that much structure, and certainly not all artists. So beyond your curricular requirements within your department or your program, you can also take classes outside of the program, either within other areas at the School of Art. We have these interdisciplinary courses that are really designed for anyone to take, and they also help give you access to other faculty and students that are at Yale studying in the School of Art. But additionally, we require at least one class or 3 units to be taken anywhere else in the university. So you can take undergrad classes, you could take a class, some classes within the other professional schools are difficult to get into or you need prerequisites, but our registrar, Emily, who also does academic advising along with the DGSs, the directors of graduate study, will help guide you toward those options. But just know that you have to take a minimum of 1 course out in the university somewhere, but you can take more if you want. Pedagogically, there's a lot about the way in which we teach and frame the curriculum that is consistent through the programs. One thing is that all of our first year students take a course called Critical and Professional Practices. You can look it up on our website, but CPP is a course that's really rooted in, contemporary art and design, history and theory. It really looks at research in relation to studio practice. It's kind of framed to also encompass certain key professional practices that are necessary for artists and designers to know, anywhere from things like grant writing to kind of legal and sort of law practices, taxes, things like that. And we also have this course, the faculty who teach it also, they endeavor to also to use the class to teach our students about all these other resources and areas of research to tap into at the university to kind of underpin and support their scholarship. So that's the first thing. All first years take that. There's 4 thematic sections each year. We give admitted students the opportunity to select and to rank their choices, and then we put you in those classes with students from all the other programs. It's a great way also to start your interdisciplinary peer kind of networking. As far as the programs go, every area within Yale has a core faculty group. So this can be tenured or ladder track faculty with a structure of visiting critics as well that are hired on an annual basis, other critics for the critique panel. We have lecturers who facilitate classes, grad classes or undergrad classes, and critics who come in to do studio visits or desk visits with you. So in any given year, the various faculty and critics that are here are kind of appointed to work with students in a variety of different ways. We also bring in visiting artists to do lecture series, as well as sometimes instructional workshops or skill-based workshops. Painting, photography, and sculpture programs have a scheduled weekly critiques every Tuesday, and some of those are open to visitors, some are not. Some, such as photography and sculpture, every student in the cohort takes the crit every semester. Where in painting, first year students take round trip in the first semester, which is a first year crit, and then they take pit crit in the second semester. In the second year, they pit is in the fall, and then thesis is worked on fall through the spring for painting. So it's a little bit different across each program, but graphic design has like a core studio class with that's team taught by usually 3 people, and these crit classes are all taught by a they're co-taught, or they're taught by a or there's a panel of critics in each one of them. So basically all of this is happening. And then aside from that, on Wednesday afternoons, we have our interdepartmental programming, which is a time and space where we've cleared everyone's schedule. There's no graduate requirements offered in the afternoon on Wednesdays, so that we can have interdepartmental trips, lectures, workshops, and town halls. So we have community meetings twice a semester with the dean. So that's all possible with interdepartmental day. And this was really the vision of our dean's group, because the thinking really has been that we want to, wherever possible, break these silos down between disciplines and areas of study, and really bring people together as one school. So we're really excited to see the things that are happening with that. Additionally, Wednesday mornings, we teach a group critique class, which students from any discipline can enroll in. Sam Contis is teaching that class for the first time this fall. And next semester, A.L. Steiner will teach the interdepartmental crit. All study culminates in a thesis exhibition and or book with a thesis review. So whether it's just a show that you have, you'll have a thesis panel that reviews your work in that show. The graphic design students, in addition to a group exhibition, are required to produce a thesis book, which goes into our archive at the Haas Library. And the same goes for photo, where they leave a box of 20 prints as their thesis in addition to their show. So this again varies a little bit by program, but that's a requirement of all of our students to graduate. So most of our students, as far as exhibition, most of our students will participate in at least 3 exhibitions in Yale's gallery. Our gallery, as I mentioned earlier, is 100% for student use and exhibition. We have a calendar of shows that begins as early as September, where we host our annual second-year group show. And then we have an undergraduate group exhibition, followed by a first-year group exhibition, which we just opened last Friday for this year. And so that's first and second year group, and then your thesis show. So you have at least 3 shows on campus during the MFA program. Fall semester, let's see. Oh, I already mentioned that. So, and then every April, School of Art hosts a weekend open studio event, which welcomes visitors into student spaces. All are welcome. That this coming year for 2025 is going to be on April 5th and 6th. This is really the only day that you can come into the building and come into studios and actually see work and meet students. You can also attend an opening of the thesis shows, even though the thesis shows run throughout the spring semester. Only the actual opening receptions are technically open to the public. But if you apply and you're a finalist, or you get in and you want to kind of come visit, get in touch with me if it doesn't work for you to come to open studios or a thesis show, and we'll sort that out at that time. But the open studios, I think, is just a really important event for us to welcome the external New Haven community in, the wider Yale community. And people come from New York, they come from all over for open studios. We had more than 1,000 people come through each day in this past year's open studio event. And it's mostly student run. Lindsay, who's here with us today, is so invested in community engagement in art and public art, but she's really taken this event and worked with the students each year to produce an incredible website with student work and field like proposals for talks and symposia, different things happening during when we have all these people on our campus. So these are some images from Open Studios this past April. Some of our students did a little food cart in the courtyard. And this was from one of the public talks. And there's our dean there in the front. Okay, so as we get into the different areas, this is going to be very high level. I'm not going to go in depth into each program. We just don't have the time. So I really do welcome you to go on our website, not just read about them, but go into the incredible archive of thesis show documentation that is under exhibition on the wiki, because that's really going to give you a lot of information about the work coming out of the program and other things. So we have within our 4 programs, we're going to go one by one here. Each program has a director of graduate studies, and that person is really responsible for guiding the vision of the program. And, our leadership changes in programs, and then so does to some degree the mission, although we always will have the vast history that our programs have built upon. So the mission of the design program is really grounded in visual exploration academic study. The students are encouraged and urged throughout the program to really develop a visual voice and working methodology for investigating culture, issues of our times, technology, and how we represent information visually and how we engage, with communication visually. These are, as we go through, I picked images from each program's thesis shows from the past few years, just to give you some examples of how what we're talking about here as far as these missions are manifested in the work. In graphic design, we have a unique setup where we have a 2 and a 3-year program. Our prelim program is really for students who have come from other backgrounds. So potentially you're a printmaker, or you studied architecture or journalism or something else entirely, not visual. But you don't have that formal undergraduate training in design. The 3-year program gives you that, preparatory year to set you up for success going into the MFA program after. The 2-year course of study for the MFA in graphic design is based on conceptual design development in a range of media. We are very typography focused, but we're, in addition to print work and type, our students more and more have expanded, and our curriculum has into, interactive design, motion graphics, video, spatial design, and coding, to name a few. We are going to have a sound class this coming semester as well. So this, as I mentioned, for all the programs culminates in a thesis book, but it's really a way to show this diverse body of coherent work that demonstrates your individual working methodology, and you present that to a body of designers at your thesis review, and then we enter that into Yale's archive. There are, a range of printing facilities within the design department. We have also the print shop, of course, in the Crown Street building. So students who are interested in screen printing and more hand printing techniques can do that. We have RESOs in both areas and large format printers. Here are some of our faculty. So Nancy Mutiti is the director of graduate studies in graphic design, and also an assistant professor. Nancy is an alum of the prelim program. And then Andrew Walsh Lister is our assistant director, and we have 5 additional full-time faculty. Well, Sheila is a professor emeritus, so she's not really teaching anymore, but she's around and does some desk visits sometimes with students. But our faculty is in the graphic design program in particular, really coming from a vast range of different professional practices. These are our faculty that are appointed annually. So whether it's lecturers that are teaching instructional classes, lectures, or senior critics who've been around teaching in the grad program for quite a long time. There are also some individuals on this list who are actually just teaching a class in the undergraduate program, for instance. But all of our students in graphic design take Core Studio each year, and that is a team taught class in which you is really your grounded kind of core program teaching and learning, critique, kind of there's a series of workshops that's built into Core. Sometimes you take trips. This is, I think, an archive at the New York Times or the New York Public Library that a field trip went to, and this is at the Whitney Biennial. And then when you have your thesis, you will present in a formal way to a panel of faculty and visitors and critics. These are all examples of work from, this is the group, this was from a thesis review, this was from a group exhibition last year that the design, or 2 years ago, that the design cohort of 2023 mounted this show. And then these are a little older. But in addition to the core classes I was mentioning, there's a lot of other design classes that you're required to take, but you have some choice of what they are. So if you're interested in, taking a coding class, or you want to focus more on writing, or you want to focus more on video and motion graphics, there's a way to kind of customize the curriculum a little bit within that. But there still are a lot of classes that you have to take. And prelims have a pretty set first year of instructional coursework. So please, again, go online and look at the work in the program and some of the exhibition archives to really be able to see a wider range. For the portfolio guidelines for graphic design, we recommend that you can have a collection of work, whether it's professional, experimental, commissioned, self-initiated, that demonstrates your experience and skills, but of particular interest to us is going to be work that's personally driven and challenges norms of conventional design practice. We really want to see how you design, how you think visually, how you bring your own personal kind of aesthetic into the work. And again, how you challenge, right? Like these, how do you push the work and make it your own? We definitely want to see a good amount of self-directed work. And if you are working professionally and you want to put some professional work in there, please do balance it out with your own aesthetic. This is okay. This is actually this is a little misleading. These are different Yale publications. This slide came in the series of work that I was sharing from the program, but the reason that I included this, probably not the best example, is one of the things that we see in the design program all the time that they do not want is composite images. So what that means is when you're putting your portfolio together, we want 20 slides. If you say have a book or you have a publication, instead of photographing, 10 spreads from that and mashing them all into one image, think about maybe doing a video where you go through the pages, or just select the layout that you think is the most impressive. What's really difficult is when you try to cram way too many images into one slide and we can't see anything. So composite images are a big no-no in every program, but certainly design. So this was the closest thing I could come to it within our examples of our own work to show you. So don't do this. Okay, moving into painting and printmaking. Painting and printmaking is our largest program along with design. They're relatively the same size. But painting and printmaking gets almost half of our total applicant pool is in painting and printmaking. The program mission is to really situate the discourse of painting and printmaking within a broader and global history of aesthetics, encouraging students to question, explore, and exploit the conventions that define any one medium and how all mediums are interrelated. So we have a structure of critique in town hall that happens. It's a very close-knit department that meets together a lot and kind of engages in and builds these community guidelines around its critique process annually. with everyone who's involved. Emphasis is placed on analyzing the relationships between form and content, practice and theory, research and embodied experiences, including language and its effects. So there is a lot of emphasis on the research that goes into your work and kind of, the artifacts of the scholarship that you're here undertaking, but really like what it means and what it's related to within your personal history. We really work diligently to support how artists can contextualize their practice within the history of painting and printmaking and contemporary art, as well as geographically, socially, and politically, creating a space for your intervention within that discourse. Our students in painting take critique almost every semester. So first years take round trip, which is a first year crit in the fall, and they will take pit in the spring. I do think I mentioned this. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. Second year students take pit in the fall. Pit is the big weekly crit where you have one big critique for about an hour and a half, close to 2 hours per time. And then all of our students in painting second year will take thesis. So they take thesis in fall and spring 6 times over the course of each semester, and they mount their thesis show right now as it stands in the beginning of the spring semester. There's also seminar courses that are offered each year that you can choose from, and electives. But you also take 6 credits of independent criticism each semester as a painting and printmaking student. And that is where you're doing independent studio work, but also meeting with critics in your studio. These are our core faculty. They are here full time, except Maleko Magazi is on leave this semester. And Maria de Los Angeles is the current interim director. This is, I think last year, this was taken last year in the winter. This is the second year cohort last year. And then our painting and printmaking faculty that are appointed annually is really a mixture of people that are here as cold critics, core critics, instructional faculty, teaching grad and undergrad, but these are sort of like the annual appointed faculty that might shift and change a little bit year to year. This is some work. This work is all from thesis exhibitions that have taken place over the past couple of years. And as we go through some of these examples, the reason I chose them is just to show the vast range of mediums and focus in terms of materiality, subject, style. Everybody's work is their own. We do have students that are working in painting, but making work in video or sound or sculpture or other disciplines. But for the most part, there is some connectedness to sort of like the substrate or the 2D image making practice. But really different materials and approaches here. I think I have a detail of this one. Yeah, this is fabric printed and kind of, woven. Right. And the students in painting work in individual studios, both first and second year. And we have 2 thesis shows. So we divide the group into 2 groups of 9. The thesis class that we're now teaching also works toward a publication as well and some web presence. And then in the past few years that I've been at Yale, the MFA painting cohort, once they graduate, has taken, in a very student-led and completely run by them way, has taken their thesis exhibition to other places such as New York, or even I think Beijing was where they did the China show the year before last. And like the photo program has done a thesis show in LA. So this is, again, as the cohorts want to direct that. So portfolio guidelines for painting. We only like to see 16 images for this program. We do ask that you touch upon very briefly, it can be a sentence, your representative image, which is just one painting you select to talk about in the statement, but the statement should address the work the themes in the work and the approach of the work more broadly. So we recommend at least 8 examples of the work be made in the last 12 months. We're also very attentive to the scale and tactility of the work. So really like we want to see the edges of the painting. We don't want you to digitally mask the image so that it's black all around it. Detail photos are not necessary. If you really feel it's necessary to include one, limit it to one. So I'll give you an example. So here's a piece that's hanging on a wall. You can see the shadow underneath it. You can see the space around it. This is it digitally masked. This could be made with any medium, right? So this really shows us it's a physical painting in space, and we like that. Here is another example of a detail. I think that this detail is a good example of deeming it necessary to really see all of the texture and detail. But again, we really only need one such example in the portfolio. If you're invited to interview, there will be supplemental materials we'll ask you to submit, and some of that includes works in progress or ideation type sketches, and we'll let you know that at that time. Okay, moving through photography, I'm just checking the time here. So photography at Yale is very much based in the documentary, in the picture, like the actual print. We foster a critical environment that supports and challenges all of our students to develop and build upon their individual visual language and subject matter, expressing their unique view of the world through the discipline of lens-based picture making. Our pedagogy at Yale Photo is based on a structure of practice and production, coursework, like getting everyone familiarized with all these different pieces of equipment and cameras and ways you can make work when you're coming in, as well as critique with a panel, a panel of practitioners and photographers and curators and just minds in the contemporary art world on a weekly basis. I would say that the photography program has the most sort of built-in opportunities for critique. Our students in photo have 3 critiques a semester on average. The tradition of documentary photography and the power of the print as a physical object. We're defining principles and practices of Yale's photo's early years. But really we're looking at like how the medium is constantly evolving and the presence of photography in culture in terms of screens, devices, and media. This is an image from a crit. We run weekly crits in photography. They happen every Tuesday afternoon, evenings with, as I said, a panel of critics and your peers. These are our core faculty in photography. Greg Crutzen is on leave. Actually, this is a typo. He's only on leave this fall. He'll be back in the spring, so he'll be back for admission. John Pilson is our interim director. And then we have Lisa Krejci, Sam Contis, Ben Donaldson, and El Perez. And then our appointed faculty for this year is this list. And as mentioned in painting, except Marta Kuzma is a tenured faculty. She's interdepartmental, but she sits on the photo panel. But the rest of these faculty, some are teaching undergrad classes. The visiting critics like, Roxana and Jennifer Blessing, a second year class goes to New York and meets with like these curators in these incredible institutions in New York City as currently part of the required curriculum. But so our faculty are here in different capacities, and we just try to be really transparent about that, of who's here all the time and who's here some of the time. So first year students take practice in production. And as I go through and tell you a little bit about the curriculum, you're going to see images from recent thesis shows. So this was a student last year, Andina Clarkson. But our first year students take practice in production, which is really, again, like familiarizing everyone with the capabilities of our lab. We have a class called Core Curriculum 1 or Core Curriculum 2, which El Perez teaches, and that's really about contemporary photographic histories and contextualizing the work within the history of the medium. And you'll take weekly crit, as well as visiting artist lecture series. They have an active series every week. A different photographer is invited, and our students have a say as to who those individuals are, which is really exciting. And like painting, you also take 6 credits of individual criticism, where, the crit is factored into that, as well as individual meetings with visitors and faculty. In the second year, that's when you take critical perspectives. That's the New York class. And we run a series of electives each year that you can pick and choose from as well. And in addition to the studio space you have, which is a first year you share in photo, and a second year you get your own, we also have the grad lab, which is a digital lab that all 20 grad students have access to. So as an applicant to photo, we ask for a selection of 20 images or moving image files that demonstrate your current themes and the subject matter of your work. Who or what are you shooting? How are you making up a cohesive portfolio that examines different ideas or an idea? And what is your technical approach to picture making? So like, are you let us know like what you're shooting on, what kind of cameras, what kind of photographic approach you're taking. We do like for work to be recent. And yeah, there we go. We're almost done. So sculpture, we're at our last program, final stretch. Last but not least, our program mission in sculpture is to recognize the contemporary practice of sculpture is difficult to define by medium, process, or conceptual underpinnings. We attempt to eschew style and resist rigid definitions when working with our graduate students, and aim to avoid describing tomorrow's makers by yesterday's definitions of art. We don't make easy reads of work and critique. Rather, we attempt to tease out material, historical, formal, and societal undercurrents that make up the work in front of us. We share an interest of a panoply of modes of production and of multitude of histories. Now, I think one kind of through line in our search for the new incoming cohort of sculptors every year is seeing a range of production interests, like fabric. We really do like to come into Yale Sculpture, you do have to have some form of sort of fabrication experience, whether you're making wood, metal, work in wood, metal, molds making, clay, although we do not have clay facilities. So bear that in mind. We are not a ceramics program, and it is not the easiest thing to be in Yale Sculpture as a ceramicist. I just want to put that out there. Or whether you're constructing sculptures out of other materials, our students are all building their work and making their work. It's a critical part of the program. So the students all work in very large studios in the same building with the wood and metal facilities, as well as the laser cutter. Currently, I would say that Yale's sculpture facilities are not super advanced as far as digital fabrication technologies. This is something we are hoping to move into. Space is certainly an issue, as is, there's many factors, but we are not there yet. And so think about that as you're looking for grad program, like what types of programs are going to foster the environment of facilities that you need to produce the work that you're interested in or that you have been making. Our sculpture faculty currently is 4 people. We have recently transitioned a faculty position that ran the shop into 2 full-time staff positions, which is giving us greater flexibility to have, shop management in periods of recesses and part of the summer. So Catherine is running the wood area and Julia the metal area, but Aki is the DGS. And our appointed faculty for the year is listed here. And as I mentioned in other programs, these individuals are here in different capacities, but every week at the studio seminar, which is the weekly critique class, we have a rotation of critics that come in to accompany our core faculty as they teach that class. Our sculpture students also take X-Crit in the fall, which is a critique that's based in works in progress, which is a little bit of a different approach. And then there's also the 6 credits of independent criticism where you're doing studio visits and meetings and working independently within your studio. These are images from, I think I mentioned, thesis shows of the past couple of years. And you'll see really the range of work and the material interests are quite varied. We also have absolutely a tradition of performance art making. I mean, Aki Sasimoto and Martin Kurcels are core faculty at Yale, so certainly there is a performance aspect too for many of our enrolled students. Oh, this was Baxter's piece that you can't really tell from this photo, but this piece takes up almost the whole gallery. It's a huge sculpture. This was also from 2024. This is Anne Wu. I think this was 2022. And this is Rachel Yun on the right side. And Andrew Ordonez on the left. So this is from the thesis show. It's getting dark in here. So portfolio guidelines for sculpture, select 20 images or time-based files that demonstrate your current work, as well as your technical approach to construction and fabrication. Three-dimensional works should show the surrounding space and context. This is really important. I'll show you an example of this. But we'd like, and you can show details, but we encourage you to limit that to about 3 of alternate views. So label each image with the title, date, and the medium and materials. So here's an example. This is Pop Soule's Falls thesis show. So this wasn't an applicant, this is a thesis, but you made a giant peanut out of cardboard. But this is a nice example of having kind of seeing more detail in the alternate view. And then this one was Baxter's, the detail. Okay. So here we are. We kind of went through the interdisciplinary work. But our I talked about this already, but our interdisciplinary curriculum is really concerned with getting students to think about their work outside of the confines of their specific discipline, to connect with peers and faculty across the School of Art, but also to encourage you out into the university, into all the vast, amazing resources like the libraries and centers for research and engagement. We also offer a lot of different student opportunities, such as travel fellowships and residencies that we fund and that are, in many cases, application-based or competitively based. But we have, in addition to each program running their individual talks and lectures and visiting artists, we also have interdepartmental scheduled events and talks and workshops too. So we have a faculty that is not tied to any one specific department. Within this group, you'll find, for instance, the individuals who teach the critical practice first year required class. Sarah Oppenheimer is returning as professor in the practice this spring. We're super excited about that. She's going to be full-time every spring for the coming years. And we're really excited to see what happens with that. A.L. Steiner, Leslie Dick, these are people who are around and teaching across different areas of the undergraduate and graduate program all the time. Some just come to teach a class. This is our Dean Kim Pinder in a talk at the Asian American Student Affinity Group. We have had different, artisans and artists come from different places in the world. We did it this last year. Aki Sasimoto and Nancy Mutiti organized this Zulu beading workshop, which was incredible. That lasted for about a week in one of our studios. This is Marta Kuzma doing a talk with Barbara Chase Rabu. Yeah, so there's so much more I could tell you, but we're out of time. So learn more by using our wiki for information about applying. We really encourage you to go there as your first stop to get your questions answered. We can advise you via phone or email, but start with the website. Please follow along School of Art Instagram as well as student-run programs accounts. So these are non-official Yale accounts, but students do run them. So like Yale Painting, Yale Photo, Yale Sculpture, and Design. And then we have an online archive of student exhibitions and 3D tours. You can come to a thesis show opening or our Open Studios event in April. And that's it for the virtual visit today, but we will have the supplemental faculty and critic kind of roundtable discussion about admission on December 5th and a student information session or a panel discussion on December 10th, where they will actually show you some work they applied with and talk about their experience. The deadline to apply is January 8th at midnight. Mark your calendars, do it early. Financial aid deadline, not just for submitting the FAFSA, but also the CSS profile and additional supplements is March 1st. And you may not know if you're you'll know if you're a finalist. You won't know if you're admitted yet. And then check out, our website and email us at art.admission.yale.edu if you have questions. Thank you so much. And we will take a couple of your questions. I am going to just move to where there's more light. Thank you, Lindsay, for running the open house for us. And hello, everyone. Nice to see some of you. No pressure to turn on your camera if you do not want to do that, but thank you for being here. All right, let's see. Does anyone have any questions for Nicole? Because poor Nicole has had to sit through so many hours of me talking on these things. So, all right, does someone ask, I'm reapplying, does admission? Okay, if you're reapplying, yes, we do know that you've reapplied when you apply. Sometimes the committee says, what did they do last time? And we might pull up your previous application just to see what's changed. We might not, but we might. So there's always that possibility. We do recommend if you're applying again to have some new work. Doesn't need to be all of it, especially if it was just a year ago, but to have some. We also would recommend you can use your letters in your statement from the previous application, but why not write new ones? If we're open to accepting interdisciplinary practices, yes, but you still have to apply through a program because currently we're accredited to offer degrees in those 4 programs. So that is kind of why I talked through the different programs and showed some examples of work. So you can say, like, if you're multidisciplinary, where do I feel like my work belongs, both in the mission of the program and also the kind of work that's coming out of it, which is sort of indicative.
Taryn, we also have a few questions that are coming to me directly in the chat.
Okay.
Do we look at the statement at the same time that we look at the portfolio stage? Or is the portfolio reviewed first?
So that depends on the program. We do usually look at the portfolios first. But we do read the statements. So basically the whole committee will look at the portfolios first, then the individual readers will read the individual faculty are assigned files and they will read all your materials and sort of summarize, or we'll come back together and everybody can have access to reading it. But that's kind of how those are read. We don't have, 6 or 8 people in a room together all reading the same thing. That's pretty typical of admission processes. But this is a fun fact, we did start looking a little bit more carefully at undergraduate transcripts in the past couple years. Really, because not so much because we care about we're looking for like the top GPA necessarily, but what we care about is consistency. We care to see that we just have seen it play out that students who were consistent students tend to be more successful grad students at Yale because our program is very structured. If if you have a lot of withdraws and fails and it took you a really long time to finish, you might want a less structured program than we offer here. So that has been something that it was definitely really difficult for me to get the faculty on board with taking the transcript into more consideration than we were. But I think it's really helped to it's really helped us to form our cohorts in a way that they're really engaged and really serious moving through the program. So again, it's not the GPA number necessarily as it is like seeing the commitment to academic study. But your statement does matter. Your statement really should address the work, what's relevant about you. It doesn't have to be like a personal history of yourself. You won't have enough time and space for that. It should address the work, what you're interested in, and why Yale, why now.
If our painting work is from the past year and a half, is all from one body of work, is that okay, or would you like to see a more diverse portfolio?
Again, this is one of those portfolio questions. It's hard to answer. I would say if it's all work you've done in a year and a half and it's a series, we love a body of cohesive work. That sounds fine. If it's like the same painting over and over, maybe you want to mix it up a little bit. Again, that's for you to know. I'm not looking at the work, but we do whatever you would define has been your practice over the past year and a half. Like, I think that's totally relevant, even if it's a series or of interconnected works.
And could you possibly elaborate on the representative image that must be referenced in the statement of purpose in the painting application?
Yes, this is a painting specific request. So painting, there's this feature in Slate where of your portfolio pieces, you can select one as your representative work. You can do this no matter where you apply to, but the only program that actually pays attention to it is painting. It technically is like the cover page for your application if you become a finalist and we print it out, but they just give you an opportunity to sort of speak to one specific example of work in your statement if you want to. I would also say that that guideline is not heavily scrutinized. So there are definitely people who apply every year that don't go into detail about their representative image and are still very much of interest.
There are a few questions about TA ships.
Okay, sure. You want me to would it help to just define what we do with that?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
cool.
Just
So
basic.
yeah, so we do offer, as I mentioned, so art and architecture are the only two of the professional schools at Yale that also teach all the undergraduate courses for Yale College. So our faculty are often teaching grad and undergrad. We offer TA-ships to second-year students, and they're true assistantships. We don't have you teaching multiple classes. It's a job where you're assisting one of our faculty that 4 hours a week when they're in active class time with undergrad students. We do have a graduate student worker union now, so there's a labor contract, and the pay is a little higher now, but it's not, for instance, like I can always think of the example of like a UC, where in the UC system, if you get a TA-ship, like you're teaching multiple classes and that's sort of paying your tuition. We don't have that. So we'll never have students teaching students one-to-one. You'll always be there with the faculty. And second years are generally given one TA-ship, so either fall or spring semester. Occasionally, some people get two. But yeah, that it pays based on the hours a week that the course meets. And we have a couple of graduate course assistantships, but not very many. Is it important to include behind the scenes photos or videos of portfolio to show your art and progress? Not at this stage, but that is a great question. So the painting program, and to some degree sculpture and design. So if and when you become a finalist, we will ask, in some programs we'll ask you for process work at that time, or sort of like generative, iterative drawings or sketches. So I wouldn't include that in your initial application, but it may come later. Okay, for applying to MFA, AI generated images. Okay, so if you're using AI generative tools, this is a new frontier, you know, for all of us, but you have to be really upfront about that. And we're not, we haven't had an instance yet where we've admitted a student to a program that is working entirely in AI and doesn't have a physical practice like that, you know, produces some artifacts of that scholarship. So I think, you know, it's not, you don't have to fill out the description in every portfolio piece. In fact, we don't actually recommend you do that for every piece. But if you are using generative tools or you're collaborating with another artist or designer, that should be explained in that example. Yeah. It's a little bit of a vague answer, but maybe I'll have a different one in a couple of years. I'm not sure. If I have a larger installation that can't be captured with one image, do the different views. You know, yeah, this is again, okay, so here's the question. If I have a larger installation that can't be captured with one image, do the different views of that installation count as details? Depends. You know, sometimes you see an installation is maybe an installed exhibition, and there might be 4 or 5 sculptures in a space, and they're all kind of interconnected, and so there's different views of the sculptures of the space, but those works were very labor intensive, or someone spent months making them. You know, I think it just really boils down to there being enough work. I don't know, enough is such a vague term. Like, we've definitely gone through portfolio reviews before where everything like looks really impressive and the faculty are really into it. And then we kind of get to the end of it and we realize we're actually really looking at like 3 or 4 pieces, you know, in this whole portfolio, right? So, or all the images are from like one shoot. So I think it's really just about seeing a substantive amount of work that is your practice. So we say about like 3 maximum of like another view or a detail for sculpture, and then 1 of those in painting, as a general guide. If you have 4 or 5, but the work's really labor intensive, I mean, it's not going to disqualify you, but that's how I would answer that. But yeah, sometimes installations require multiple views. Yeah, so how are the portfolios reviewed? Individual readers are reading applications on their laptops or on a bigger monitor screen. We do have some committees where when we're going through the portfolios at first, we have people in a room and they're looking at a projected space. So it just depends what phase of the process we're talking about. But we can see everything, and however we're doing it, just know everyone's work is being viewed in the same way. So that's equitable in that way. Yes, your application is reviewed solely by the department you're applying to. That is correct.
I have a question that was sent to me in the chat, Taryn. Regarding the work history tab in the application, how do you list freelance work when you've been hired by an independent person and not an organization?
Yeah, you can just put freelance as the organization or the person or whatever the work is. We see that a lot. Are there example opportunities for students to exhibit off campus, such as the New Haven Art Community Open and Lively? Maybe Lindsay, you know what Open and Lively is? I'm not sure. I should, maybe it sounds like. We actually, the School of Art is, there may be opportunities to exhibit off campus. Well, this is a multi-layered answer. So we create opportunities for you to show on campus while you're a student in either the first or second year group show or your thesis, as well as having open studios. Many of the cohorts have thesis shows that they take to other cities. So a lot of times photo and Painting do a show in New York. They've been doing them in LA. Painting did one in Shanghai last year, but basically they're organizing that themselves. So there are some spaces in New Haven. The School of Art is looking at potentially an off-campus space or a space that's not within the School of Art, but I think that's going to be more to bring in like local artists to show. But I don't know, Lindsay, if you have thoughts on the other area, the other organizations. Lindsay's very involved in like community art in New Haven.
Yeah, no, I was just typing an answer in the chat that students have exhibited at Creative Arts Workshop and Art Space, but that those were self-organized projects.
Great. Then I'm seeing questions about like how much is the portfolio weighed versus the statement. I hesitate to answer this question because I think it's really a combination of everything you're sharing with us. We're looking at it's true we're looking at the portfolio sort of first and foremost, but we are also very much looking for people with potential, right? This is a sort of a miss. Also, I want to also say Lindsay and Nicole, if you guys need to go because it's so much later than I thought it was going to be, please, you can, and I can stay on with everybody. I'm a blabbermouth. So we have we really are looking at all of these different pieces that kind of make up who you are. One common misconception is that we're looking for like the most polished, finished, ready for the gallery, ready for primetime work. But that's actually not the case, because if you're already there, then you're actually going to probably be difficult to teach and resistant to change and not really want to come in and go through the process of what an MFA is, which is really questioning your work and really kind of just deconstructing it to rebuild it back up, right? So although the portfolio is probably like the key thing that we're mostly looking at, that's the part that's going to sort of get you to the next phase. But all those other parts are really critical as far as like how you're writing about your work, what your interests are, you know, what your undergrad, like what you did in school, what your interests were, what classes did you take, and what do people say about you that know about your work. So, yeah, we're looking at the whole person for sure. All right, I'm gonna take like one or two more, and then we may have to answer some of these via email. So let's see. I'd like to hear about the faculty-student relationship. What are critiques like? I'd also. Okay. I can't give you the actual, like the really, like the details of like what enlargers, what darken facilities. I could provide you that via email. So if you write us an email, we can try to forward that to Ben and get you that info. But as far as the student faculty relationship, you know, I mean, critiques are very, you know, critique is a very high stakes process for the artists involved. A lot comes out in critique. I think our student and faculty relationships are professional. They're very cooperative. They're, you know, I think these would be questions you can ask the faculty and the students. If you come to those sessions, they'd probably be better to answer them. But we're a small place and our faculty are very invested, certainly within the students that are in the program at that time, right? So many times, I think almost always, our students leave the program with a very vast network of both peers and also faculty and critics that they've met at Yale that will be people they'll know for the rest of their life and career, certainly. But faculty, some of our faculty live here in New Haven, many of our faculty live in New York and commute. We absolutely do not recommend commuting to students. You have to live here. You really have to be here to take advantage of the program and all the things going on at Yale. So most of our students do live off campus, but right here in New Haven. There are some graduate housing options for grad students, but they're not guaranteed and they're pretty hard to get. Most of our students generally tend to be people who I think would rather live on their own off campus. All right. Sarah, do you see anything you want to answer? No pressure if you don't.
I don't have anything specific. Hi, everybody. Just to say that I'm going to put the email address if you want to email us in the chat. It's art.admissions with an S, like Taryn had said earlier, at yale.edu. And I'm the person that answers that, so I do appreciate your patience. There are lots of questions that come through, and I will do my best to answer those questions and point you in the direction. Ben has given me details around the dark room. If whomever asked about that wants to email and just say I'd like some details about the dark rooms, I can pass that information along. And then the wiki, if you have portfolio questions, please read through each section of the wiki for your specific area of study. That is the directive, right? So that's the most clear information. And I always suggest, pick the work that you feel best represents your practice, that is your strongest work. And the same goes for letters of recommendation. Pick people who are going to be supportive and tell us who you are. Yeah.
Sarah. I do see a series of questions about interruption of academic history. So if you did have an interruption of your academic history or you had to take a break, that's, every person has their own circumstances. That is what it is. You may want to address that briefly in the statement. You don't have to offer too much detail, especially if it's something related to your health or things like that. But you may just, if you know that you see like a interruption or a break or maybe some questionable academic performance, you are welcome to address that if you want briefly in the statement. And then let's see, we also, I'm sorry, I'm trying to navigate this, this Q&A thing. We can and have waived bachelor accreditation. This is very rare. It's usually for people who have not followed a traditional academic path, but have, a math or acquired artistic or design experience in some other way. These are not like prodigy students coming out of high school that come to our grad program. They usually have some other kind of comparable lived experience that was in place of, a formal undergraduate education. You're welcome to apply. What we don't necessarily recommend is applying if you did an undergraduate but didn't finish it. Yeah, this is, I think in my 7 years here, we've admitted 2 students who did not have an undergrad. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up because we're gonna let poor Lindsay go have her lunch, and Sarah. Really, I respect all your time. I'm sorry this went so long. But we really are grateful to you all for coming. And if you would like to come to the supplemental session, this was like the big, bulky, all this information session. But if you'd like to come to the session where our faculty talk about admission and then our students do, we welcome you to go to our page, art.yale.edu/visiting, and sign up for those subsequent sessions. And we look forward to seeing those of you there and certainly to review your applications when they come in. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Taryn.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Nicole.